Good morning. Welcome to day 2 of the Eden Alternative International Conference. We hope you had a wonderful day yesterday, and I guarantee you today will be even better. This is our day we do our deep dives that will start after this session ends, and it'll continue on throughout the afternoon. But this morning, we have some amazing speakers that are going to share some words and inspiration with you. Our first speaker is the co-founder of the Eden Alternative and co-designer of the greenhouse model of long-term care. She is also a certified labyrinth educator and has used labyrinths for many years in her training and retreats. Most recently, she agreed to serve as the chief design officer of Minka, a new company that is dedicated to helping people create the homes and communities they need to thrive at every age. A mother of 5, Jude lives in Ithaca, New York with her husband Bill and her daughter Haley. She is an avid painter and has mounted shows featuring her work. I'm honored to introduce Jude Thomas.
Thanks, Sonya. Good morning. Beyond these walls is a world that obsesses over the difficulties that come with aging and neglects its depth and beauty. But here in this room, we are free to explore all the gifts that Elderhood has to offer. Let me start with a wonderful secret. Not all elders are old. It's true, each one of you is an elder in the making. Come with me, and I will tell you how the gifts of Elderhood can be found at any age. My name is Judith Ann Myers Thomas, and I was born to a remarkable woman named Jane O'Hara Myers. My mother was born in 1915, 103 years ago. She gave birth to me in 1959 when she was 45 years old. She died quite suddenly at 66. I was 22. My mom was truly a wise elder, and she taught me a great deal in our short time together. In 1913, she left the small town where she grew up, moved to Greenwich Village, and enrolled in Trinity College. Now, at that time, this was a bold and daring act. My mom challenged the status quo. She was strong, she was brave, she was adventurous. When the war began, my mom surrendered her plans for a career, married the man she loved, and moved back home to Norwich, New York. I remember asking her if she ever resented this, and she answered, "This was not about me." She taught her 4 children how to be patient and always consider the needs of others. Ironically, these virtues have served me well in my 25-year marriage to a man who thrives on turning the status quo upside down. What I learned from Jane O'Hara Myers also guided me through challenges that could have easily destroyed me. My mom did not believe in boxed hair color. In my first memory of her, she was completely gray. In America, gray equals old. So I spent a great deal of my childhood fearing gray hair because I was terrified of losing her. I still remember a day when I was 13 and my mom dropped me off at the YMCA. One of the kids asked me if she was my grandmother. Shamefully, I answered yes. But even though my parents were much older, they were way cooler than most of my friends' parents. And you want to know why? Because they were wiser. They had raised 3 kids before me and had learned not to sweat the small stuff. Life had knocked them down a few times, and they taught us that getting back up is an essential life skill. This is how Jane O'Hara lived her life and how she taught me to live mine. She was the first, and still the best, wise crone I have ever known. Allow me to introduce you to another extraordinary elder. Her name, Hannah O'Hara Thomas. My daughter, Jane's granddaughter, was born February 3rd, 1997. She was soft, sweet, beautiful, and so very frail. She came into this world endowed with a ferocious will to live, day after day, Hannah struggled to overcome a bleak prognosis. The doctors gave her less than 6 months. But what a party we threw for her on her first birthday, and soon we began to call her the toughest Thomas. Year after year, she fought the odds, and through it all, she displayed her grandmother's grace, wisdom, and style. At 18, she lost her fight for life. Every day, I learned from Hannah. I learned from her that we are all elders in the making. Hannah taught me to treasure each and every day as if it were my last. She inspired me to believe that no matter how difficult or unfair life seems, we must do more than simply survive. We must thrive. Hannah showed me that the life in our days is vastly more important than the number of days in our lives. And she taught thousands of people around the globe about putting the heart of care at the center. And in the end, she taught me about letting go. And that by far has been the hardest lesson. And yet I feel her with me, and I am still learning from Hannah. Christopher Reeves once said, "A hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles." I think he was describing my daughter, the wise elder. The third elder I would like to tell you about is me. And when I was developing this talk, the virtues of Hannah and my mom came tumbling out. I found it much, much harder to recognize those same virtues in myself. It was only after a great deal of reflection that I began to understand I live my life at the intersection of Jane and Hannah. My understanding of the world grew out of the wisdom that I had gained from them. These insights didn't come for free. They never do. I had to face up to my fears, and I continue to work hard to become the person that I am meant to be. I remember longing for my mother's arms when we learned that our oldest daughter, Haley Jane, was going to live a life without the ability to walk or talk or even sit up independently. Not only did I question my ability to handle it, I suffered a terrible sense of guilt. What had I done to deserve this? Somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I heard a soft, wise voice say, "This is not about me." When Haley's younger sister Hannah was born with the same condition, I plunged again into a whirlpool of grief, and I had to take every ounce of my strength just to make it through each and every day. Bill and I were knocked down twice, and we got up twice. We mourned the loss of our dream of perfect, healthy daughters and opened ourselves to the possibility of loving these beautiful girls just exactly the way they are. There was great pain there, and with it, the seeds of wisdom. I am learning slowly to turn regrets into lessons. I was afraid of my mother's gray hair, but I can sit before you now and say, honestly, I am proud of my gray. Every strand of it is part of my story, my journey, my lessons learned. Hannah and my mom are gone from me now, but the lessons they taught me can be found within my every breath. They were my guides to elderhood. They showed me the way. Just as Isaac Newton claimed, if we can see far, it is because we stand on the shoulders of giants. Bill often says that elders are the glue that holds society together, but I think there is a deeper truth to be told. Elders help us shape our messy, confusing lives into the story that belongs to us and no one else. We need elders in our lives because their stories must be woven into our stories. Their wisdom gradually and painfully becomes our wisdom. I have been a child and a mother, and now I am a crone. And someday my story will be woven into the fabric of the next generation, and the lessons I have struggled to learn will find new homes within those elders in the making. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude. I'm honored to introduce our next guest. Sonya Barsness is a gerontologist. She's been working in healthcare for over 20 years in many capacities. She describes herself as a revisionary gerontologist. Sonya and her husband recently took a sabbatical from everyday work and life, and it provided a space for a new passion to appear, a new voice to be heard. We're happy to listen.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So when we consecrate a time to listen to the still small voices, we remember the root of inner wisdom that makes work fruitful. We remember from where we're most deeply nourished, and we see more clearly the shape and texture of the people and things before us. This quote resonated with me so much. As Meredith has said, my husband and I took a sabbatical. About 2 years ago, my husband and I made a decision that we wanted to take some time off, that we needed some space. And there were many reasons why, and if you would like to ask me about how we did it, I'm always happy to talk about that because people are always fascinated by that. But we made this decision. So I know not everybody can take this time in the way that we did, but I do encourage all of us to somehow create space, because it is in the spaces, I think, that the good things happen. We see that all the time, and that was certainly the case for me. So this will not come as a surprise to those of you that know me, but when we decided to take a sabbatical, the first trip we rented a cabin in the woods. And so I brought with me my flip charts and markers, and I made my husband go through an exercise to determine what goals we wanted for the sabbatical, because I wanted to use this amazing gift, which he said was weird, but fine, we did it, right? So 2 things came out of this. One is that we wanted to travel, and so we did a number of different amazing adventures. That's me with our little dog, Blue. And we decided on new professional directions, next steps. So you can't see the title of this book, but it's called Boomerangs, How to Make and Use Them. I did not go that path, boomerang flinging, thankfully, but I am still in aging. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about my story and tell you about this idea that kind of came out of this. That certainly is not necessarily new, but I think it's something that needs to be revisited and something that we probably all think about, but not really. So my work as a gerontologist is about, like many of us, changing the way that we see people as they're growing older, people as they're growing with dementia, and the way that we support them. And I had gotten to a place that I was so frustrated. Have you been there? Okay. I was so disappointed, right? Why is change not happening? Why is change not happening? What's my role in this? What can I do better? Is there something else I can do? And I was in this place when we took the sabbatical, so I really tried to intentionally use this time to think about things differently and to try to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. So what I came to was that I know that we have to change the paradigm, right? We have to change the paradigm. And in order to change the paradigm, we know we have to change the narrative. And in order to change the narrative, we have to tell a different story. But I think that what we have, though, in front of us is that there is no single story of growing older. There's no single story, and so what do we do with that? How do we use this information? So what I decided was that I had this amazing gift and privilege of all these years working in all these amazing communities and listening to elders. And so I needed to go back to the root and try to hear what people had been telling me. And so I went through all my notes and I read books and I talked to people and listened. And what I kept coming back to is that people were telling me that they felt invisible. Even worse, they were saying that they did not feel seen. And I think this is something that's missing. When I think about even gerontology, we have neglected this terribly. We've neglected the individual lived experience of growing older, growing with dementia, and it's not just gerontology, right? And I began to kind of think that I think this is fundamental. Like, this is a common denominator in some ways of why maybe we're not seeing what we want to see, is because we're not seeing people. We're not truly seeing who they are. And it's even more than ageism, and it's even more than paternalism and all these things that we know about, right? It's really seeing people for who they are as human beings. And so then I thought, well, maybe my role is that I am some sort of gerontological midwife that's going to create a place, for people to be seen. Maybe that's what I can do to impact this. And so I believe that if we see people, we become curious about people. And I believe if we become curious about people, we see them as us, not them. And I believe that when that happens, then we can create better ways to support each other as we grow older, because it's actually based on us seeing people as individuals. So this is my thesis. I don't know, we're gonna test it. So from this time came two different things. One is a blog that I started called Being Heard, the voice of a revisionary gerontologist, and certainly feel free to take a look at it. And this is my effort to kind of critically evaluate gerontology and aging and different ways of looking at things. And then the other is Being Seen, which is what I'm gonna tell you about this morning. So I'll tell you what being seen is, and then I'm gonna tell you what I think being seen is not. So being seen, in my mind, is about seeing people for who they are as they grow older or grow with dementia. And it's sharing this with the world so that the world can see everything that people are as they grow older and grow with dementia. So it's about being curious about people, and it's about vignettes. It's about sharing what people say about themselves as they grow older or grow with dementia, not me describing them. So here's a concrete example. So this is a Facebook page I created, but is actually not live yet. But just to kind of show you, this is a conversation with a woman, 92-year-old woman. And for those of you that can't see it, it says, when I think about what it means to be 92, I think about how I feel like a flat tire. I know it's only the bottom part of the tire that's deflated, but that means that the rest of the tire is just looking like it's okay, even though it's not usable. I mean, what a profound thing to say. And that helps us see her. It's not everything about her, but this is a way that we can see who she is. So what is being seen not? To me, being seen is not about asking people what it's like to grow older. It's really about who people are right now. It's really not about seeing people for their age. It's about seeing people at their age. It's really not about looking back. It's not about asking people to say, who were you? It's about who you are now and who you might want to be, which is something we never talk about, right, as we grow older. And I think it also means then it's not about painting people in a different way. It's not about positive or negative or frail or healthy. It's just about who people are, which might mean we're going to see that people are complex. People can be wise and a jerk. That's reality, And I think that's what we have to be talking about, is that we have these images, right, that are not really accurate about who people are. So what do I not know? This is really a journey. I mean, I feel like I'm taking these steps and I'm figuring this out as I go along, and I'm trying to figure out the best path for how to do this. So is this a website? Is this a blog? Is this a book? Is this a movie? I don't know. It could be all of those things. But I feel like there needs to be a place for this. I feel like there needs to be a place. There's something missing in this conversation in some ways. It's so fundamental about going back to the person and person-centered care. So a couple of things, I have started to talk to people, and I just was going to share with you some of the things that I've learned, is that something has been amazing is this theme of community. When I ask people about what does it mean to be seen, who are you, how do you want people to see you, almost all the time this comes up, is this idea of that I feel like I am seen when I am a community. Interestingly, this gentleman I had talked to in a CCRC, and he had this beautiful, profound quote. Community is a place to be whole. But he also told me this is the ideal. This is not what he experienced. He said that he felt like in the CCRC, because of where he lived in the CCRC, he was seen as that. So now that he was in assisted living, that's how people saw him, and that they didn't see all these other parts of him. So people weren't seeing him. But he felt like that was the opportunity. And I love that, that he saw that possibility. Also, I was in senior housing talking to a group of elders, and they said the people here make me feel seen. So again, this idea of community, that that's how we feel seen. A couple of other lessons. So I've talked to lots of different people, I've tried out lots of different questions. It's actually very amazing, to ask the right question. How do you get to the essence of who someone is? Sometimes it's just being with them, right? But then sometimes you want to kind of draw this out. So I've tried it in different ways. That's a question I've asked people, is what would you like people to see about you? I've gotten lots of different responses. Sometimes people just talk about their roles, which, as we know, is a huge part of who we are, but it's also not everything. So trying to get a little bit deeper into that. This is a really lovely story I'm just going to read to you about a response I got. I was asking about what does it mean to be seen, and a woman wrote to me and said, I took my mom, age 81, to dinner the other night. Before we went, I helped her pick out her clothes and jewelry and put on a touch of makeup. Living with dementia, she doesn't get out a lot, and sometimes doesn't get out of her PJs. I took her picture and showed it to her as we sat at the restaurant, and she said, that's how I remember myself. Thank you so much for making me remember. She struggled to find the right words, but it was heartfelt. She often berates herself for her memory loss and feels voiceless, especially when family and friends visit her. At age 72, I'm the same person who I was many years ago. What does it mean to be seen? To be acknowledged, to be said hello to or smiled at by someone who is near me or passes me by, to be asked questions about me. If you can't be seen, be heard. Everyone has a talent, use it. This was a group, they were very irate that people would not take the initiative to be seen. They were very upset. They didn't understand what I meant. This was, a woman had told me that after she had read about something I had written about this, she went to a conference like this, and she said she saw the whole conference differently. She was paying more attention to the people that were speaking and seeing them. And she said, made her think about how can I put myself out there to be seen by others. So this is the most recent iteration of the questions. I've been asking people to just simply say their age, and then I also am. So I'm going to ask you guys to participate in this. So I'd like you guys, if you have a phone or a laptop or internet access, is go to this site called menti.com, menti.com, and when you go to it, you're going to put in a code, and I'd like you to answer that question out there. Just say your age, and then I also am, and then in real time, it's going to pop up on the screen. So I know the guys are going to switch over to that, and just put whatever it is that, there's no rules. I can read it. It's menti.com again, and the code is 736515. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah. I wrote for mine, I'm 44, I'm also a nail biter, love sleeping, a runner, a nerd, and an extroverted introvert. Just a little window. I'm 49, I love crocheting and living my life now. 43, artist, writer, mother, advocate. 46, I'm also loving my new role as a grandmother. 45, a dad, partner, biker, lover of people, and adult beverages. Likewise. 27, I'm also a dog mom. 35, I'm also strong. 56, a grandmother and a daughter and a mother. This is great. I'm 60 and hoping I might be an elder someday. So I think we can see the amazing potential of this, of really trying different ways to see people. And I think it is so fundamental, and it's such a it's the crux of, I think, what we are trying to do. I'm going to read you a couple more things I've found out about people. I'm 57, I'm living with Alzheimer's. I want people to see me for who I am, not my disease. Absolutely. All right, I'm going to switch back. You guys can keep going, and then I actually can even share this with all of you if you'd like to see it. So I'm reading here. Okay. I'm 76. I'm also interested in how our world is developing, which makes me an avid reader of world perspectives. I even make myself read the people with whom I don't agree. I'm compassionate but opinionated, and sometimes the opinion trumps the compassion, which means I'm still learning how to be in the world. Isn't that beautiful? I'm 75. To be seen is to be acknowledged as someone who still has thoughts, dreams, and practical input that are worthwhile. That was my mother-in-law, by the way. I've been testing this out with people I know to see if it is actually reflective. I'm 72 years old. I'm also a wife, mother, grandmother, retired, busy, but sometimes miss going to work. Love cats. Hopefully in my old age, hope to get one. Like to garden. Sometimes I feel my age holds me back, and I love having my family around. That's my mom. I'm 72 years old. Sorry. I'm also a huge soccer fan, do not like snakes. Love fishing, Austrian-born, Vietnam veteran, master mechanic. Family is everything for me. I'm very gifted and handy. That's my dad. Which kind of cracked me up is they wanted to handwrite it. It was very important to them. So they printed out my blog and then wrote all the answers and then scanned it and sent it to me, which is pretty technically, savvy actually. So it kind of cracked me up, but. So I had mentioned this idea of vignettes, right? And I love this term. And when I looked into the meaning of vignettes, so in photography, in the context of photography, a vignette is actually how we refer to the outer corners of a photograph. It's actually the things that we don't see. It's the things that we don't look at. So what I want to say is that we need to see people. People feel invisible, and let's make them visible. And so that's what I want us to rise up to do, is to go back to your lives and to see people for who they are. We see people for their dementia. We see people there for their wheelchairs. We see people for them being frail. Let's see people for who they are as human beings. And I really, really feel like this is going to help us change the world. So thank you so much for seeing me today.
Thank you, Sonya. So next I would like to introduce Mondy Carter and Karen Stobbe. They've been together for 25 years and have supported Karen's parents in care for 22 of those years. They met performing improvisation and continue to use improv in many ways. Let's see how improv relates to dementia, well-being, and life.
Thank you. Good morning. We are so pleased to be here with you this morning, and want to share that always anything starts with a quick story, right? So those are my parents, Manfred and Virginia, and they were married for 56 years, and they both passed away after we cared for them with Alzheimer's. But I learned many, many lessons from them, and we're just going to talk about a few of the lessons that I learned. So first of all, talk about improv. And here is...
This is my definition of improv, the spontaneous revelation of what the imagination presents.
And this is my definition.
Yeah. They're both true. They're both true.
But just from our two different definitions, you could probably look at our bookshelves and tell whose books were whose.
Yeah. and who has an easier day.
here are the guidelines. When you really don't have rules of improv. There's more guidelines that make it easier if you follow those guidelines. And it's the same for being with a person that is living with Alzheimer's or going through life or has dementia or anything at all. There's these guidelines that you could follow. So here's our list of guidelines. So the first ones are listen fully, say yes and, agree, don't deny, commit 100%, and silence can be powerful.
Accept help from others, go with the flow, step into their world, be in the moment, enjoy, to get joy from.
And we've been sitting for a little bit too long, so we need to warm up just a little bit.
Yeah.
So we want to just play a quick improv exercise called Next. All we do is ask you for a word, we do a quick improv scene, we ask you for another word.
Yeah,
and so it's pretty easy.
Your cue to yell out something is just, we'll say next, and you'll just yell out a word.
Okay? So, how about a word?
So to start off with, just any old word. What was that in the back? I heard that over there. Something over there. Banana. Banana.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Petunia. I've got a treat for you. What could it be? Look at this. It's some beets. I'm kidding. I've got a banana. I've got a banana.
Next. Xylophone. Xylophone.
Next. Chicken? I heard chicken.
Chicken. Now, if you observe the chicken, you'll see that we've implanted into his brain a system that works off of my iPhone. If I push this button, we have discovered how to manipulate the chicken in whatever way we want. If you observe what happens when I push this button, okay, chicken. He enjoys that a little too much.
I do. I don't get to be chickens that often.
So, don't applaud that.
Hey.
So, in improv,
You need to listen fully. When you listen fully, it allows you actually to be lazy. It allows you to not work as hard. You watch an improv show, and I talked to people before, and they ask, it was like, how do you think of things so quickly? And really, it's by listening, it allows you not to work so hard. You don't actually have to think any quicker. You are just letting go of everything else and being open, and that makes things happen. It makes your imagination present stuff to you.
so when you listen fully in the world of Alzheimer's dementia, there's some great lessons there too. I love this quote here by Carl Rogers. We think we listen, but we very rarely do we listen with real understanding and true empathy. Yet listening of this very special kind is one of the most potent forces for change that I know. I feel like listening is this amazing foundation that we forget about, and it's a skill that we have to work at and learn. Here's one of Mondy's quotes here.
Yeah, by listening, you create space for the other to experience personhood.
And what do you mean by that?
Because when you are listening, you're completely open to the person, and then they are able to understand who they are in relationship. We always understand ourselves in relationship to ourselves, in relationship to other people, and our environment. And when you are open to somebody, then you get to understand who you are. That's why being isolated is so damaging.
And it really means suspending your ego and truly to listen to somebody else. And Jude used this phrase a couple of times, that you have to, it's not about you. It's about you, not me. So when you're fully listening to somebody else, I'm suspending my ego and just giving myself over to focus and really listen to the other person. That it's about you, not me. So the next one, in improv,
Yes, and it's a foundation primarily of improv. It's the reflex that you have to develop when you're on stage with other people. By saying this sort of guideline means that you are affirming whatever comes along, and then adding to it, acting as if it's the best thing and saying yes to it. So it's not necessarily just saying the word yes, but it's also thinking the word yes, feeling the word yes, accepting all of these things as they present themselves immediately. A lot of times we can develop this reflex of surprise being a bad thing. I didn't expect that to happen, now I've got to manage it. Well, in improv, whatever just happens is the greatest thing that can possibly happen, and you're accepting it and adding to it.
because if you don't, it stops everything on stage. It just stops the action, and it's not interesting to watch two people argue or say no on stage.
No. Yeah.
It just doesn't get anywhere.
It breaks a circuit, really. This circuit happens between the audience and what happens on stage. And it connects and allows the suspension of disbelief to occur. We can all imagine together. But as soon as someone says no or denies something, then things have to be figured out. And that circuit is broken and the magic doesn't happen.
So for instance, if I were to say, and you said, instead of saying yes and you said no, so if I said, hey, Monday, let's go to the store.
No.
We need to go to the store.
Nope.
Come on. Come on, please. Okay. So I would have to come up with a different suggestion, a different idea in the improv scene.
No.
So instead, if he's...
Nope. No.
If he said yes and instead, so if I said, hey, Monday, let's go to the store.
Yes, and we're gonna take my experimental rocket car.
Then we would have to get into his experimental rocket car, and I would...
Welcome aboard my experimental rocket car. You'll find complimentary beverages in the back.
So, when you think about yes and in relation to life or in relation to being with people living with dementia, how often do they hear the word no? And how do you like to hear no? The word no, 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 no,
No. No. No.
I don't know about you, but I am that type of person that I don't like to hear it. It kind of makes me want to do the opposite of whatever you want me to do.
Yeah.
If you told me I couldn't leave this room, I would be standing here saying, I see 12 doors. And I can run pretty fast when I want to.
Yeah.
So we need to think about that we're doing this a lot, whether it's those we teach, assist, work with, live with, that this no can be detrimental at times. Because when you think about, especially in aging, in folks living with dementia, it's constantly getting more no's. And whether they're physical no's that you can't do what you were able to do before, whether it's emotional no's that your pen pals aren't writing you back like they used to, because your page 2 is exactly the same as page 4, or you pull out a letter from 10 years ago of your desk and you start writing and return the letter in reply to that very sweet card from 10 years ago. So what happens to all these physical no's, mental no's, emotional no's? But what if we respond with, instead of no, you don't sit there, no, don't do that, no, we're not leaving right now, later on. What if it was yes and? Because that yes and can be very powerful when you say yes and to someone. I want to go home. Yes and. Tell me about your home. Yes and. It says I understand. It says I hear you. It says I know how you feel. It says, hey, I empathize with you. Yes, it validates the other person and it agrees. It can be a powerful tool to use, the yes and.
Accept offers and gifts. Now that sounds as if isn't that just what yes and is? But it's also a way that you are looking at what these things are when they pop up. When things surprisingly come along, you are framing them in the terms of being an offer or a gift. That's how we actually talk about it in improv, is that these things are gifts. So you're not just looking at this thing as something to use in the scene, but it's like, oh, thank you. I'm so happy that you told me that I'm a maniac banker who will give loans only to dogs.
So, but isn't that beautiful when you think about that the same idea about offering gifts, that how many gifts do we receive every day that we're not accepting, or that we're not even realizing we're getting these gifts from the people that we work where they live or that we go home to. The beautiful stories that happen, the history that we could learn, the honesty that comes out, the love, the smiles. You know, you always can get another chance. The wonder and the laughter. Don't forget about these gifts. Realize when they happen and accept them and say thank you. Because every day you're getting gifts.
And going with the flow is important in improv. The drift of the scene, the tone of the scene, not thinking about where you want the scene to happen, what you would like. You're like, oh, it'd be great if we could just make it go this way. It's not looking forward. It's going with the way that the whole scene is moving forward. You're stepping into this kind of river and allowing it to take you along.
So for instance, if I was to give Mondy the gift of being a postman, then he would have to go with the flow. So if I said, oh, I'm so glad you're here, I've been waiting for my mail.
Well, I've got all these mailers here for you, and there's the Bed Bath & Beyond coupon.
Wow.
I know you've been waiting for that.
I have. Or maybe I give him the gift of being the Queen of England. Oh, it's so nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you. I've just escaped from Buckingham Palace so I can go to the racetrack.
Oh. Or maybe I see him as, forgive me, Father, for I've sinned.
Well, go forth and sin no longer, my child. And later on, you know, most of the time I do these confessions in church and not in the produce section here at the store. It's a good thing you're being holy, though. Is this ripe? I never know if this is...
It's ripe.
Is it supposed to
Go with the flow. So I'm going to have you guys just practice real quick, a quick go with the flow moment. So what's going to happen is I'm going to ask you to partner up with somebody at your table. Or it can be 3 people, but it works good to have just a partner. But this is what you're going to do. So you're going to tell a story between the 2 of you, but you can say 1 word, 2 words, a sentence, whatever you want, but it'll help you go with the flow. So for instance...
So as soon as... so I'll just start talking, and I'll just start telling a story. I was up on the roof, and I was fixing the chimney when I found this...
big, huge beehive.
And I was like, wow, this is an excellent wig. And... so I put it on, and I was like, I look like a Far Side cartoon.
So, you get the idea. You go back and forth, but the minute this person stops talking, that person has to pick up the story. You can say 1 word or 1 sentence, whatever you want, but decide who's going to start in your partnership, and this is the picture I want you to tell your story about.
It's a classic.
Okay?
It's a classic.
Are ready? Tell your story. Go right ahead, go. Okay.
I'm going to wrap up the story.
Yeah, bring you back. You might have to talk louder to get them back.
All right. Okay, everybody. We need to wrap up the stories now. I like that. That really sort of swelled to quite a crescendo. That was nice. Some people's momentum of their stories won't stop. That's nice. That's fantastic. But we'll have to continue these later.
You guys can just do in your story for another 10 minutes. All right. How did it go? Good?
I think so, yeah.
I see a lot of smiling. I saw a lot of laughter. I saw a lot of people truly listening to the other person because you had no idea what was going to come out of their mouth.
Yeah.
And it looked like some of you were surprised.
Yeah.
And so, but you truly were going with the flow. You were listening intently, and whatever they said, you built upon, and it went back and forth or around in a triangle or in 4 with 4 people. But that's going with the flow. Why can't we just do that all the time instead of stopping and saying, oh, that's not right, or no, you can't? So going with the flow, and it's one of the hardest things for us family members to really do, is to just go with that flow.
And stepping into their world is important in improv. When someone has built something up, they're starting something on stage, then you have to come in, and it's part of saying yes and. It's basically saying yes and with your body. You're stepping into the world that's been established by the other performer or by the audience. They've given you a location, and you're stepping into the world that they're imagining. And that allows the whole circuit to continue.
And stepping into the world sometimes is really looking at that emotional content which is behind the words that are said, and looking at their body language and their facial expressions and the inflection and tone of their voice. And sometimes this is one of the biggest things that has helped me, is to say, I see you're feeling so sad. Is there anything I can do for you? I'm so sorry. What can I do for you? What can I do for you? It's a great quote from Father Boyle, who works with the Homeboy Industries, that he said he realized in order to really help someone that we think we go and we look at the situation and say, here's what you need. Here you go, I'm helping you. But he said, no, what we need to do is to say, look at the situation and say, what can I do for you? What do you need? And then do that. And the other thing is that we have this tendency, especially as family members, to constantly be, not physically, but mentally, emotionally, pulling that person back into our world instead of taking that step and going into their world. And so we need to stop that physical pulling, that mental pulling of pulling them back instead of enjoying the moment and being with them where they are.
Committing 100% is the really only way to do improv. Throwing yourself in there completely. It's just the way that you can step into somebody's world, the way that you can say yes and, the way you can listen fully is by just throwing your complete self in there, because 74.6% is very difficult.
45% is hard.
Yeah, 91.7% is hard.
But
100% is so much easier.
Just jump in all the way.
There's nothing left of you to resist.
It's futile.
Yeah.
So whatever you do, please give 100%.
Unless you're donating blood. Yeah. That's gross. And silence can be powerful. There's a lot of times you think in improv, well, it's all about just saying something funny or just letting your mouth run so that you can find something to work with. But really, putting yourself into in the position of stepping into somebody's world really starts in a place of silence. And silence draws the attention of the audience because it just does. It's just the way it is. So we'll show that right now.
Sometimes we forget to just be. Sometimes we think that it's so important to keep busy. And sometimes some of the most important moments can be when I just was able to sit with my dad and brush his hair and put lotion on his forehead. When I could just sit and hold my mom and sit and look outside and hold her hand and just be with her. Didn't have to say anything.
Accept help from others. There's a lot of times when you feel like, oh, I've got a great idea, and you feel like, well, that's just got to be me then. I'm just going to go forward with that and just do it on my own. You might have a great idea, but if you are working with other people, your great idea could be so much better. That's what improv's all about. It's the fact that our minds together can create something larger than the sum of its parts. Storylines become much more interesting when it's being influenced by a bunch of different minds and perspectives than it is when it just comes from one. So accepting and allowing yourself to connect with other people and accepting that help is really important in improv. Or if you're a couple of dogs.
And it's important in life. If somebody says, can I help you, say yes. I don't know what it is right now, but something will come up that I'll probably need you. Yes. I need some help. Can you help me with Mr. A down the hall that, you've got your special smile that he likes. Can you help me for just a little bit? Yes, yes, yes. Accept help from others.
And enjoy. There's a lot of times, especially when you're first learning how to be on stage, is that there are these guidelines and I'm trying to do a good job, and your inspiration or your dedication to trying to do something good can all of a sudden rob the joy from what you're trying to do, because you're evaluating what you're doing. Is this good? Is it what I'm supposed to be doing? If you just relax, breathe, and pay attention to the joy that is happening, then all these other things kind of come along for the ride, and you'll have so much more energy. You're so much more interesting on stage when you're experiencing that joy. Even if you're pretending to be somebody who's miserable, you can still enjoy it because you're up there doing it, and it's exciting.
And sometimes it's just about smiling, right? Sometimes that's so simple, of something that we can do to just smile. And how easy is that? And when you really think about it, it's contagious, right? Smiling, when you smile and you see somebody else smile, you can't help but smile back. You might pull up to a light and you see another car that's pulled over there, and you just are looking around, and all of a sudden they smile at you. And you smile back, even though you feel like they're a little creepy, and they keep smiling at you. And they keep smiling. But it is an easy step that everyone understands, and it's so easy to do. Smile.
Be in the moment. It's an easy thing to say, and it's one of the hardest things to really condition yourself to do on stage. You think about, oh, that was a good moment a couple of seconds ago, that was really funny, and then all of a sudden you're thinking about that and you're not really able to listen fully. Or you're thinking about what you want to do next. Oh, I really want the scene to go this direction because I really would like to be this kind of character, and you're not in the moment. But if you relax, breathe, and center right in the moment, then improv can happen. Otherwise, it gets all clunky.
I actually had a great teacher who was one of the CNAs that cared for my father while he was passing away. And what she did is, before she entered every room, she would stop outside that door. She would take a breath. You could see her put her hands inside one another and then knock. Hey, Mr. Henry, it's me, Lakeisha. And every single door, you could see her doing that. And I believe she was centering herself. She was getting ready for whatever was on the other side of that door. And we need to really practice that a little bit more, of what can be your touchstone? What can make you stop and pause and be in that moment?
When we were taking care of Karen's mom, and Karen would sometimes be out of town, and so it would be just her and myself. Our daughter Grace would be off at school, and one morning I made the mistake of saying, I'm going to take you to the doctor later. And of course she's like, all right, let's go. She's ready. And I was like, oh, no, Virginia, we're going to go in a few minutes. I just have to get dressed, okay. And because I can't go. Don't want to
Okay.
show up at the doctor's in my
Okay.
pajamas. That's
Should
it.
we go
Oh,
now?
yeah, we're gonna go. We're definitely. I'm just gonna change.
Okay.
I'm gonna change. So you're good. You're good. You're great.
Okay.
I'm gonna go change. And so eventually I would change, and then I would get. It's like, okay, Virginia, it's time to get in the car. Okay, and we get in the car, and I help her with her seatbelt. Gonna get the seatbelt over there, and then that's good. Okay. All right. Boy, it's anxious to get to the doctor today. Oh boy. And so I'd pull out, and I'm just driving down the road. And so, whoa! Holy smokes! Just make this noise that just freaked me out. So I just stopped the car for a second. And is everything okay? Are you? What's?
Did you see?
What?
Look at those mountains. Did you know that we lived here? Look at those mountains.
You're right. They're really beautiful.
Can we just sit for a moment?
Yeah, sure. I think I need one.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.